What's up, you guys? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're starting from the ground up. I want to build this YouTube channel just as how I would build a golf swing. Start with the foundation. And let me run you through what my process is really quick with just how I approach golf swing, how I approach my instruction process, my coaching process, and how I make my decision making. Now, rule number one for me is you should move like a golfer. What does that mean? Well, you should set up like a golfer with decent posture. You should rotate like a golfer in good space, shift your weight, and finish like a golfer. So that's rule number one. You want to move like a golfer, because if we don't do that first, we're layering compensations on top of that. Number two is we're gonna start to organize your ball flight, and I call it creating a predictable ball flight. What does that mean? That means being able to hit a shot that looks respectable, starting with centered contact, starting with hitting the ground in front of the ball, starting to get the ball airborne, and then starting to organize the club face and swing path after that. And then the final piece I would consider to be ownership and skill building and refinement. So we're starting to work on our skills, we're starting to work on how we use our swing, we're starting to work on ownership, we're starting to work on all the things that are gonna help you play great golf long term. So within that decision-making process, it starts with your setup. And I want to go through some common setup errors, how to get set up, and fix those common errors that I see in the setup. Because as I mentioned earlier, if you don't build good movement first, you are forever layering on compensations on top of poor movement. So we want to start with the beginning, we want to create really awesome movement, and then we can build on top of that. Essentially, it's building out the foundation of that pyramid, so your foundation is good and strong, and you have a major upside. You can continue to work your skills, build your skills, and create long-term sustainable skills. And that's what I'm all about. It's not about quick tips, it's not about quick fixes, it's about putting the work in, putting the hustle in, and doing the things that are gonna add up over time. Most of us are gonna play this game for a really long time. So we want that slow and steady trajectory that you can continue to build your skills, sustain those skills, and it's forever educating yourself and forever refining that process. At the end of the day, none of us ever win golf. We only continue to play the game, and hopefully we got that trajectory that I'm talking about. Let's get started by going through the setup and how you should get set up, and then after that, we'll go through some of the more common errors I see and some of the fixes to those errors. So first and foremost, for general purposes, I'm gonna get set up with a mid-iron today. This is an 8-iron. It's the middle of the road, it's the middle of your bag. There are some slight differences in a wedge setup versus a driver setup. And if you're curious and learning more about those specifics, I can make a video later, just let me know in the comments. But today, let's talk about how to get set up with a mid-iron. First and foremost, because golf is played on an inclined plane, we need some forward waist bend. So let me show you what I find to be the easiest way to get set up consistently. We're going to take a club, we're going to take our grip. We're not talking grip today. We can do specific grip stuff later, but we're talking body setup today. So I find the best way to get set up consistently is to start with our arms straight and on the grip of the club. We're going to hold the club out like this. Arms are straight. We can add just a touch of knee flex. It doesn't need to be much. I see way too many people sinking down here. Just a touch of knee flex. And from this point, we're just going to take and bend over until our club hits the ground. Spine should be neutral, meaning that your belly should be tight. Now, a couple checkpoints for you to look at. Number one, the base of my neck should sit over my toes. You can use a mirror, you can use video. I'm gonna overlay a grid so you can really see that. We're gonna have a little bit of forward bend. Our arms are gonna be nice and straight, and the handle of the club is gonna be just a little bit forward with a long iron. And then the club face, because I see way too many people set up with their club face shut, the club face should start pointed straight up and down. And if we just bend over, that club face is very, very square. Key checkpoints, a hair and knee bend forward from the back, from the waist, and we're gonna bend forward till we hit the ground. And that should leave me in a pretty good setup position, a good starting point. The arms should hang directly below my shoulder joints. So my arms should hang below my shoulders. And if you were hitting a driver, they would be just slightly further. If you're hitting a wedge, they would be just slightly closer. A good reference point down here is about 6 inches from the butt of the club to your body. Anywhere from 4 to 6 inches is good with a mid-iron, slightly less with a wedge, slightly more with a driver. Now that's your basic setup position. We want to make that consistent. We want our setup to be consistent because it's one thing we can control in the game. If we have a consistent setup, a consistent ball position, a relatively consistent grip, then we can have an educated problem-solving process if something goes wrong on the golf course. We know our setup is good, something went wrong after that. So work really hard to get your setup good consistently. Now let's talk about a few common errors I see with the setup and how to fix that. I mentioned earlier I see a lot of knee flex. Your legs should be relatively straight with just a hair and knee bend. That's a really simple thing to fix. Secondly, and this is more common, I see a lot of people that have S posture, meaning their lower back, there's an overextension in their lumbar spine. The easiest way to fix that is to take and to tighten your belly. If you suck your belly down, if you try to compress your rib cage as if we're sucking it down, that's going to keep your spine in a nice braced neutral position. As I bend forward, if I bend forward from that position, I won't have any overextension in my lower back. That's a really bad one because that can create pain over time, and nobody wants pain in their golf swing. Now another one I see, and this is not as detrimental to your golf game, but it's not such good posture for your spine, is this heavy C posture where the shoulders are very rounded forward, the belt line is very level, and it looks something like this. It's just, this isn't a very athletic position. You'll see some golfers who are a little more rounded in their upper spine, but there's definitely a little bit of waist bend down here. C posture is another bad one that is not good for your posture, and it's really not great for your long-term golf game. Now here's another one that's a little more complicated, and I'm going to do my best to explain this, but basically your belt line, the line of my belt should be relatively level. My belt should be level. Lead hip should be raised up just a hair. So if I'm looking at my belt line, it's either level or it's raised up this way. What we don't want to see, what I see as a common error, is I see this reverse hip tilt is tilted this direction, and then my spine is tilted this direction, and that really tends to create an outside-in bias swing path. So the fix to that is setting that lead hip more forward, taking your spine and moving it slightly away from the target, and your spine should be slightly away from the target because of the way we grip the club. When we grip the club, our right hand is beneath our left, and because of that, my right shoulder should be lower, and I should have this hair of tilt away from the target. Now, these are the setup basics. These are important. You want to get your setup in a position that it's consistent, you can do it every time, because what are we doing building forward? We need to build on top of this. You need to have a good setup so we can forever continue to build skills on top of a decent setup. So what's the process to have a good setup? Let's go through that one more time. Just a little bit of knee flex. Hold the club out straight up and down. Bend over until that club hits the ground. My shoulders should, or the base of my neck should sit over my toes. My arms should hang below my shoulders. The shaft of the club should have just a hair of forward lean, and that club face should be pointed square out towards our target. Now that's the setup. The setup is important. Don't overestimate that. We can always circle back to it. We can always talk finer details, but I really just wanted to talk big picture stuff, how to get set up. We can continue to build forward. We can continue to build out those golfing skills. All right, I want to thank you guys for being here. Do me a favor, if this is something that you're into, if you're into the golf learning curve, if you're into wanting to play better golf, wanting to work at your craft, subscribe, hit the bell, and I will catch you back here for the next one.